Alright, so welcome back to another review. This time we're taking a look at the SMSL M400 DAC. So this one's a cool one. It features a lot of I/O, connectivity options, a sleek, minimalistic design, and a very functional LCD screen that displays stats on the front of the device. Now just a quick FYI, Apos Audio did send this unit out to me for review, and as usual they did not impose any sort of restrictions or conditions regarding my review process, unlike a certain brand that sounds like L Cheese. I have not been paid to review this, and all thoughts are my own. By the way, link in the description to check this unit out on Apos Audio's website, and if you use this link to purchase it, you help out the channel tremendously. So thanks for that. Now then, how does this DAC perform, and what makes it stand out above the competition? Let's find out. So let's start off with the contents here. It comes with the unit itself, of course, a tiny little Bluetooth antenna which plugs into the rear of the device and allows it to communicate with other Bluetooth-enabled devices, an SMSL branded remote to control it remotely, a USB-A to USB-B cable, and it's kind of short, the power plug, of course, and the user manual / warranties. So let's jump into the build quality and I/O of the device. Now all sides of the unit feature a very clean metallic finish, while the top features a glossy glass finish which displays the SMSL logo proudly in green. Oh, and the high-res sticker. As you can see, it is a fingerprint magnet, unfortunately, so this is very much going to be a case of set it and forget it, and keep a rag handy. Now at the front of the device, you can clearly see that mini LCD screen in all its mini glory, reflecting my phone, which is my camera. Now as for the pixel density and clarity of the panel, it isn't exactly a 4K panel or anything. If you step right in front of it and get real close, you can clearly see the pixels. If, however, you plan on viewing this like a normal human being, whether that be sitting at your desk or from your couch in your living room, the panel looks very clean and clear. The DAC also features a volume knob with a button in the middle of it. It doesn't feel all that premium, to be frank, but it certainly gets the job done. More on what it can do in the functions portion of this review. Now on the rear, you will see all of the wonderful I/O of the device. You've got XLR outputs, RCA outputs, an I2S input, an optical input, a coaxial input, a Bluetooth antenna, a USB input, and the AC in input. Well, AC in port, should I say. So yeah, it's got a lot going for it. It's got all the ins and outs you might possibly want. That is for sure. The only thing that's worth talking about here is the Bluetooth antenna itself. Now the antenna itself it's nothing to write home about. It just doesn't feel all that high quality or anything, but the idea is that you should just be setting it and forgetting it, so there's no physical interaction going on with it. You just screw it in, moderately, no intense amount of strength or anything. And there you go, it just stands up like that, and you never touch it again. That's what she said. Now let's go over the features. This unit features quite a lot, not only in terms of hardware, but in terms of software. So let's start with taking a look at the device's navigation menu. Now I'm not going to read literally every single line here, so feel free to pause the video to peruse this little document here at your own pace. So the display features the volume the DAC will be set to, the audio format / sampling rate, and the input source. If you set it to USB like I tend to do, you can see it display the high-res logo, since I tend to use it at 192 kHz. As you swap across various inputs, you'll see each one feature a different symbol to let you know where you're at. As for the remote, it can do a good number of things. It can turn the device on or off, it can mute / unmute it, it can raise or lower the volume, move across the on-screen menu, it lets you toggle between inputs, or it can let you quickly jump straight into Bluetooth. Though, by doing so, you'd still have to refer to your device and start playing something, and pairing it and whatnot. And it can toggle between controlling the DAC or controlling the amp. So I've been using both of these with nothing but the DAC's remote. I press C for the DAC or B for the amp. So we'll jump into the sound quality of Bluetooth audio in the following section, but for now, I'd like to discuss the actual tech specs of this, since it's probably a big point of discussion with this item. Regarding its USB connection, it can go up to 1 million gigahertz and a half using PCM and DSD. That's just something that pretty much every DAC nowadays can do, so of course you'd expect that. Now Bluetooth playback does allow for UAT, LDAC, aptX, aptX HD, SBC, and AAC connections, each featuring a very high max bitrate. It also happens to be using Bluetooth 5.0. I mean, basically it's packing the latest and greatest Bluetooth technology on the market. And even if something better comes out relatively soon, you shouldn't be scrambling to get it solely for those Bluetooth capabilities, as you'll find out very soon. Now, it does feature PCM and DSD filters, and again, to be discussed in the sound section of the review. Now, the pre-mode allows you to enable and disable volume controls from the DAC itself. In my particular use case, I don't really find it necessary to have it on since I've got the amp and the remote works for that as well. However, I can choose to leave it on for nice reasons. As for the audio phase feature, this allows you to toggle the output between normal and inverted. Now, I'll be frank, this goes into very specific use cases that you'd barely come across while setting up a simpler audio chain, such as your traditional DAC amp setup for your headphones and some powered monitors. So, unless you already know you need this feature, just don't worry about it. No need to adjust the volume. Now let's approach the sound quality. So let's begin with the bread and butter here, the traditional USB input. As I've previously mentioned, I typically set my DACs to 32-bit 192 kHz to provide the highest capabilities without introducing any compatibility issues with certain apps, such as FooBar 2000. The volume can be set anywhere between 0 to 80. Now I'd suggest setting this one to near its maximum first, then adjusting the amp's output. Thankfully, it appears the M400 is quite clean and clear. I've heard no issues with any sort of skipping, garbles, or distortion whatsoever. Now, considering this is packing AKM's AK4499 DAC chip, this comes as no surprise. Of course, that's just what I heard at stock settings, or at least the settings I received it at. I messed around with the various PCM filters, including sharp, slow, short sharp, short slow, super slow, and low depression. I'll set it to that setting, please, I need it. And low dispersion short. There was one particular track where I could have sworn I heard the slow filters be a little smoother, but it was so subtle I could easily attribute that to my own imagination. As for the optical input, I experienced no delays nor glitches while using it at my entertainment setup. It was smooth and effortless. Finally, the Bluetooth input. The quality of the music was quite astonishing. Bluetooth keeps getting better as the days go by, and now it's at the point where if I'm forced to listen to Bluetooth 5.0, I really don't mind it. It's actually pretty good nowadays. If I had to nitpick on some differences, cymbals sound ever so slightly more crunchy through Bluetooth than through USB. And yeah, that's just about it, really. As far as the high end is concerned, if you're literally flipping across both inputs back and forth, it just isn't quite as smooth as USB or a wired connection altogether. Seriously though, really no major complaints with the Bluetooth here. It's impressive, it really is. Now, depending on your setup, range can definitely be important when it comes to sound quality and overall playback integrity. So, I went ahead and tested this out in one of the most obvious ways one would use it. I set it up at my home entertainment setup in my living room, plugged it into my powered JBLs, paired it to my phone, put my phone in my pocket, and then I walked around the apartment. Now, I don't live in a tiny apartment. It's a moderate size. It's not massive, I'm not rich or anything, but it's not tiny. And the signal was impeccable. It really was. As for latency, it's essentially, and I mean essentially, virtually non-existent. Granted, the first second the video starts playing, there is a slight delay, but it does fix itself quite quickly. After that, if you didn't tell me I was listening to a video through Bluetooth audio, I probably wouldn't have noticed the latency whatsoever. Also, I started playing that video from the laundry room with the door shut. So definitely plenty of barriers there and plenty of distance. Good job on that. Now let's touch up on some notes and observations really quick. When I tried unplugging the SMSL SU8, which is my daily driver, of course, I used the exact same USB Type-B cable to connect the M400. It worked flawlessly, except there was one small exception to that. Under my Windows settings, it appeared as SMSL SU8. No problems with settings or compatibility, nothing like that. It was just a strange naming issue. I don't know why it occurred. And now another quick thing to point out here. If you have more than one SMSL DAC at your setup, keep in mind that the SMSL remote might try to control both devices at once. So it just so happens that both the M400 and my SU8 are tied to the C button's frequency. So when I turn on the M400 or adjust some settings, I can see my SU8 moving around and swapping some things in there as well. So to conclude here, it's a beautiful device with beautiful capabilities, but as you can see, it comes at quite the price. Now, I've no issue with paying the premium for the premium, but at its current premium price, as of July 2021, it's kind of a hard pill to swallow. Of course, this price increase is mostly due to the fire at the AKM manufacturing facility in Japan. I have absolutely no complaints with increasing the price of a low supply item. I mean, that's how supply and demand works, but it doesn't change the fact that you're paying a hefty amount for a DAC. Now, this does make you start to wonder whether you really need all of the features this DAC provides. If you do, well, look no further. Here's the device for you. The M400 is an absolute king and will treat you as such. However, if you're satisfied with only RCA pass-throughs, if you don't really need a nice looking display, or you really just don't need Bluetooth, there are plenty of alternatives to choose from. Links down below to some of my all-time favorite DACs, whether they are comparable to the M400 or more budget-friendly alternatives. In my case, I really appreciate the Bluetooth capabilities, and that is definitely something I can really use, especially for those moments where I don't want to boot up my entire system and turn on my TV and turn on my computer and use the keyboard to... No, I just flip the DAC on, I switch it to Bluetooth, I pull out my phone, and I set the track. And I just walk around with my phone, looking at memes while doing the laundry or whatever, and I get stuff done. And it works, and it doesn't degrade sound quality whatsoever. But yeah, that's going to go ahead and do it for me. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe down below. Check out the Patreon. Remember, links to all the items and what have you. And yeah, most importantly, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.